my name is Dr. Jiwei Ng, and I'm a staff psychologist and a diversity coordinator at Towson University Counseling Center. In recent months, we have heard stories of the disproportionate impacts of COVID-19 on communities of color and borne witness to heartbreaking racial trauma that compounds layers of suffering onto minoritized groups, especially Black communities. All of this serves as a painful reminder that communities of color have always been on the front lines of vulnerability, which takes a toll on our mental health and well-being. Even though there is a thread of shared experiences of oppression which runs through all people of color, it is important for non-Black person of color to recognize that being Black in America is not the same as being any other race in America. That said, as an Asian cis woman that recognizes the privileges my skin color affords me, I continue to stand in solidarity with the Black community. I will not attempt to speak on their behalf. However, I intend to share some of the weight by offering education and support as they grieve. It is with this in mind that I, along with my colleagues, created this 3-part video series to address other non-Black students of color, like myself, to discuss how experiences of race-based stress and trauma affect our mental health, ways we can support ourselves and our community, as well as speaking up against the anti-Blackness in our communities. A quick disclaimer though, the term people of color, POC, encompasses people of diverse ethnic and cultural backgrounds. We acknowledge and think actively about how each of these individual communities distinctly experience racism. To start us off, let's take a look at the psychological impact of race-based stressors. These stressors can be from major experiences like being personally subjected to workplace discrimination, hate crimes, and racial slurs, or they can be the result of an accumulation of many small indignities called microaggressions. Race-based stressors can also be experienced vicariously by seeing acts of racism in your day-to-day life, such as in the news, among your friends, or within social media. Now, think back to a time when you experienced one of these stressors. Do you remember what your thoughts, feelings, or reactions were? Think about what came up for you. When one is exposed to race-based stressors, some immediate symptoms can include muscle tension, headaches, increased heart rate, and stomach aches. You may remember feelings of helplessness, anger, or anxiety, accompanied by periods of sadness, feeling numb, or checking out. You may also find yourself avoiding or losing interest in your usual activities. All of these are consistent with what we find in race-related stress. We often look at trauma as an individual personal experience, but trauma has ripple effects. You don't experience it in a vacuum. If unaddressed, unhealed trauma over long periods of time can compound and affect families, and rippling across generations and into the greater community. Therefore, you can look at personal trauma without examining at collective trauma. So, collective racial trauma is really about looking at what happens to our collective selves as members of a particular racial group. Why is this important? Understanding how the harms of trauma can cause communities to focus on teaching their members to survive allows us to intentionally act in empowering ways. For an example, socially oppressed communities are often deprived of the resources necessary to adequately heal, resulting in compounding harms over time. Now, this intergenerational trauma commonly presents as hyper-awareness, worries about possible re-traumatizing events, and feeling unsafe around others. Anxiety, depression, and periods of checking out may also occur after re-traumatizing events. I want to end this first video by acknowledging the differential impacts of racism in communities of color in order for us all to heal from it, both as individuals and as groups of people. I find this quote really resonated with me. Non-Black people of color have faced discrimination and have been on the receiving end of racial violence, but they also have privilege based on the lighter color of their skin. Both of these things can exist at the same time. As I reflect on my own journey of confronting and unlearning my internalized oppression, I have to own the fact that I, too, have unconsciously behaved in ways that feed and replicate anti-Blackness, and that anti-Black racism does exist within my community and many communities of color. When I talk of anti-Blackness, I am referring to the historical and current violence against Black people at all levels, from undermining and not respecting Black leadership to mass incarcerations and police murder of Black people. The dominant forces of white supremacy have created colorism, or the tendency to preferentially treat persons with lighter skin tone, even between people of color. And this oftentimes unconscious prejudice results in many psychological causes, including interpersonal hostility, anxiety, and anger. As a result, white supremacy and capitalism have done a great job at dividing us people of color to conquer us. As a nation, working against anti-Blackness requires me to understand that creating environments where Black people thrive creates the possibility of more Asian visibility, as well as visibility of the Indigenous, Latinx, Middle Eastern, Pacific Islander communities. We must challenge the misconception that only one of us, people of color, can win justice at a time if ever. This is not a zero-sum game. Therefore, I implore you to lean into your discomfort and examine your own anti-Black prejudice if you haven't done the work already. Now that we have established the psychological cause of racism, in our next video, we will switch focus and talk about how, as a person of color, you can attend to your own self-care and caring for your community in the face of racism. Thank you for watching.